Yes, y'all. Welcome into a very special edition of the Dunmarks podcast. We're back at it tonight in promo school. We have a very special guest joining us to bring some awareness to mental health, since it is Mental Health Awareness Month. I talk about it on the podcast often, so I figured why not bring on somebody we know who's doing big things, making moves out here, and have her on, bring some awareness and touch on her journey as well as what she's looking to do in the future here with what she got set up. So, with that being said, welcome, Khavah. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
Owner
joining
of
us.
Thank you for coming.
yeah,
Absolutely.
owner of Hope Deals Counseling and Consulting. Look at you.
Right? LLC out
Jeez.
here.
Look, you come in flexing at the 20-year graduation reunion.
You can just tell
Me
by
and
that
Chris-
background.
yeah. Me and Chris are gonna show up like we're just two schlubs that do a podcast randomly on the weekend.
So we were talking about, I don't even know if I'm
talking
going,
about
so.
sports and wrestling and
Get
movies.
out.
And,
Y'all got
Yeah, no.
t-shirts though. I don't got t-shirts. I got t-shirts.
we do have some merch. We do have some merch. You'll get there though. You'll get there.
The
for
merch
sure.
will come.
Trying to be like y'all.
Yeah, no, but congratulations on the endeavor. Are you excited?
I am. And thank you. It was something that was just time to happen. I've been a therapist for going on 15 years, well, social worker, and I've been a therapist that entire time. And I was always just okay with, just having a job, working 9 to 5 or, part-time, which is what a lot of therapists do. And then I started to realize that I did not need to work for an agency to be a therapist and that I could do it for myself. So I took that leap of faith.
Nice.
Got out your comfort zone, right?
All the way out of it.
That's good. Well, that's getting out of comfort zones. That's a good place to start. With I guess just general open the door conversation as far as mental health goes and everything else. And we know over the last couple of years with the pandemic and everything else, how this topic of mental health has come up more often, and people are starting to look into it and try to understand it, talk to others, figure out what exactly is mental health and what they can do for somebody that suffers from mental health or just general awareness. I know for me personally, and I've talked about it on the show a couple times with comments, but I've been dealing with anxiety and panic attacks and other mental health stuff for probably, I'd say, probably almost 8 years now.
Okay.
And it's been a journey, like anything else, right? Not understanding it in the beginning, not realizing what was happening,
Mm-hmm.
how my body would react to certain situations. And I just kind of chalked it up as, I was overworked at the time, overstressed back whenever it first came to the forefront where I go, okay, this is something more than just stress and overwork and being tired or the normal running around with kids and family and stuff. This is something deeper. We go. First comment of the night. you gotta pull the strings that you know how to pull to get her to show up, right?
Right.
Yeah, no. So it was getting out of the comfort zone of saying I didn't have an issue and realizing that I do, and where do I go? Who do I talk to? What exactly is going on? All that thing. And like I said, it's literally been a process and a journey almost 10 years now. And it's been highs and lows and everything in between. But that comfort zone, I feel like that's a big thing for people because anytime you get outside of your norm, people aren't comfortable with that, right? Like you said, you were comfortable just going along your regular 9 to 5. When you decided to make the transition and open up this venture, did you have any doubts, questions, fears? Were you hesitant? Did anything, hold you back from actually taking that leap? Obviously you took the leap, but initially whenever you thought about it.
So I had always wanted to open a practice. I did not want to do therapy forever. because it can be traumatic for you. You figure with 14 years of therapy, I have heard, so many different stories and so many people from so many different types of families, backgrounds, countries, cities, things like that, but just so many issues going on. And you try not to take it home with you, but it's kind of inevitable. So I wanted to figure out a way that I could still be a mental health advocate and a professional without necessarily having to dedicate all my time to being a therapist. So the bulk of my practice is focused on training licensed social workers to get their clinical licensure. Since the beginning of the pandemic, everybody's struggling, everybody's adjusting. All of us are outside of our norm. We're trying to adjust to, the initial isolation, just the panic with the virus, losing people to the virus. Some people lost their jobs. We lost our sense of security and our sense of freedom because at one point we were on a lockdown. So just trying to adjust to that. So, and I started to have these thoughts. Initially, I was going to do a group practice, and I just had to recognize like who I was as an individual. And not that I'm a loner, but I like to march to the drum of my own beat, or the beat of my own drum. So I just figured this is a good way for me to be able to train up and coming therapists and social workers on how to be a great therapist and how to be a good clinician and how to help people without causing them harm, without necessarily doing the work myself. So I do a lot of consultation. I do a lot of trainings. Right now I have a lot of clinical contracts for agencies that provide mental health services, but may not have a clinical director or a clinical person on staff to really oversee the work. So most of my work, like I said, in my part-time is providing that clinical support to agencies. Most recently, I signed a contract with the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work as a part of a cohort. I will receive 4 licensed social workers who come from, disenfranchised backgrounds who may not be able to afford clinical supervision or afford the trainings and things like that, and they'll be getting the supervision for free. So I'm really just out there trying to educate other therapists. And like I said, when the pandemic started, there's actually a shortage of therapists. There's a shortage on psychiatrists. So a lot of people I know, my colleagues, have waiting lists that are months long. So, and I didn't want to be in that situation where I'm telling people I can't provide you treatment. So I came into this knowing I'm only going to work, as a therapist in this aspect, 10 hours a week. That's all I'm giving it. And the consultation piece, it consumes the other part of my schedule. So I had to really just set up some boundaries and really identify what I wanted to do and be specific and intentional about how I wanted to be that source of support and continue to be a helper.
Right. Yeah. I know that the numbers are super low across the board, and I got lucky. I was able, right time, right place. They just happened to have an opening, and I was able to get in there back in around August time, when stuff really, peaked for me from the mental health side of things. But yeah, I know just from going and being there and talking, they say all the time, there's a shortage everywhere. We don't have enough people to cover it. And with something like mental health, that's like the more I've been in it and the more I've learned about it and researched it and studied it on my own, it's a big thing to have a shortage in. Like it's not the area or the field, not that any area or field deserves a shortage of employees, right, or workers, but something like this that's this important to individuals, that's something that you need to have. And by you doing that, getting more people out there so more people can be seen is a tremendous thing right now.
Yeah.
And it's a lack of access. When you think about the cost of a bachelor's degree, then the cost of a master's degree, and then, I'm not going to tell y'all what I made in my first job as a therapist, but it was ridiculous. And just thinking about, the responsibility and liability that comes with that, then they're like, oh, we'll take your licensure test. Those tests are $200, not to mention the application. When I did it, it might have been $55. I just checked recently. It's closer to like $95 at this point. So then you have to be able to afford the license, the application, the test. Lord forbid you don't pass your exam. You would think because these are helping professions, they would say, go ahead and take it again. No, you have to pay for another application and another test.
Oh, wow.
And in that application, you have to have another social worker sign off saying, no, this person is, ethically sound. They're not a bad person. They're not a drug addict. And yes, let's just say that person moves out of state or they decide to retire. Now you don't have anybody, you might not have access to another social worker to sign your application. And when you get to the point of clinical licensure, it's the same thing, but that license is more expensive than the first one because it's you're stepping up your ante. Same process. You still need people to sign off for you. And at that point, you've had to have had worked for 2 years as a social worker being supervised by somebody else. So that person who supervised you needs to sign off on your paperwork. Again, it's social services or staff turnover, all of that. So what I was finding in my work, a lot of times I was supervised by somebody who had the same credentials as me and couldn't provide me that supervision. Or somebody who wasn't a social worker, but a counselor or a marriage and family therapist or a drug and alcohol something. So it comes down to being like a big lack of access. And then, like I said, the tests are expensive. They're a couple $100s. So if you don't pass or you don't have a support system or you don't have people around you that are like, if you don't pass, I got you. I just happen to be blessed and fortunate that I had people around me that were like, you'll be fine. You'll be good.
Got someone else that's going through it too.
Yep. Shout out Kenny. There, yeah. So yeah, no.
Another shout out here for you too.
Oh, come on now. Hey, don't let the name fool you on here. We may be dumb marks, but we know how to dip our feet in the waters and get serious.
Right.
You know?
Hey, Gav.
The guy Gavin.
All right. Hey, feel free to hop in, fella, because I'll sit here. I woke up like a kid on Christmas morning. I was so excited to do this tonight. I was like, man, this is great. We're going to get on here. We're going to chat. We're going to bring some awareness. We're going to get stuff out there. Like, I was super pumped. This was probably the podcast I was most looking forward to in a really long time. Not that I don't look forward to each one on the weekends, but, you know, certain things it's been contentious on the weekend pod with people down below me leaving and everything else. So, but no, I was super pumped for it. So I'll sit here and hog the whole time and not even think twice about Ends 3. So
no, that's fine because for me, I don't know much about like, you know, the therapist or mental health aspect of everything. So this is like a teacher lecturing me. Like I'm just taking it all in because I really don't know that side of stuff.
But you're right, Donnie. Like a lot of people don't know about it, and then, you know, there's like a little bit of a stigma attached to it. But I feel like the pandemic has been like a gift and a curse where people are forced to kind of have to deal with their mental health because we're stressed. Everybody's stressed. I don't know one person who has not been adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So when we're just thinking about regular day-to-day stress, and then you throw a global pandemic on top of it, it's like, well, who's not? Who's not stressed? And then the basic definition of mental health is your brain's ability to cope with stress. So if you're not able to cope with stress, then your body starts to find other ways to try to make it happen. And when it doesn't, you start to feel things like Steve said, like you might have a panic attack because your body doesn't know what's going on and your brain's struggling to, you know, keep the systems in line and, you know, keep everything flowing healthily.
Right. And I know when
Khavah, you actually brought up a word that I was thinking of before. You brought up the stigma. And so here we are, 2022. Do you feel that maybe it's the pandemic that's helped, or do you think the stigma is still there a lot, or do you think that's starting to ease a little bit, that people are more open to talking about mental health?
I think there's definitely still a stigma. Some folks, you know, will think like, well, there has to be something wrong with you to go to therapy. And that's not always true. People can go to therapy when they're okay. I encourage people to go to therapy like you go see your PCP. You go once a year just to make sure everything's okay. Let them know what you've been going through. They give you some advice and some tips or some medical things to follow up on. The same with the dentist. We all know we're supposed to go twice a year. Hopefully we walk out of there, everything's okay. So I encourage people to do the same thing with your mental health. You know, get on the therapist's regular schedule. If you don't feel like you need something weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, do quarterly. You know, develop a relationship with a therapist that you just have a regular check-in where you can do a depression screen, do an anxiety screen, set up some goals for yourself, have a wellness plan that you can follow up on. And if you feel like you need to taper it or, you know, adjust it, have that follow-up appointment. But I definitely think that there is still some stigma there, but I feel like the pandemic has pushed this issue to the forefront where it may be starting to ease some, but as it's easing, we don't have the workforce to catch the patients.
With that stigma, I feel, and it's been recently in the past couple of years, but you're seeing more athletes. We had Simone Biles, we had Naomi Osaka, we had Kevin Love from the NBA, and all world of pro wrestling. We've had Eddie Kingston and Dax Harwood reach out and talk about their struggles with mental health. And I feel like, on top of some celebrities as well, but those type of people bringing it out more into the forefront and saying that they are dealing with it, I think has helped tapered off some of that stigma that was initially attached to it for pretty much the entire time I've been alive. Like, anytime you heard of mental health growing up, it wasn't even called mental health. You know what I mean? It was, oh, you're being a baby, suck it up. Or why are you talking about that? Don't talk to me about that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was it was always negative and negativity put on it. And now, with the change and people becoming more aware of how much it impacts you from day to day, I feel like it's slowly chipping away at that stigma to where I know myself, not just because I'm in it, but to me, it's like it's acceptable now. I can I have no problem sharing my story or talking about it or whatever. Like, before, I still would have been closed off about it, even if I was dealing with it.
Right. I think with like celebrities and athletes coming out with their struggles, I think it's normalizing it. Like, you're looking at people who we idolize and put on these pedestals, who are also struggling with some of the same day-to-day mental health things that we struggle with, like stress, anxiety, depression, poor sleep, poor appetite, and things like that. I think it normalized it when you know that somebody who's making millions of dollars and is on TV a couple times a week is going through the same things that we're going through, living in Pittsburgh or Swissvale or Braddock.
Thanks for sharing, Kenny.
Yep. Yeah, line of work, especially. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, that line of work, yeah.
That's traumatic. That's daily trauma. I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine. No. And I think, like, people are recognizing trauma more as well too. Like, we've all been traumatized one way or another. Like, I couldn't imagine being a police officer, and just being in that line of work. I couldn't imagine being an EMT worker, and knowing that when I go to provide help, that somebody may not be living when I get there, So it's more of a thing that I think some people want to acknowledge it as.
Do you think? I mean, I guess as we're getting rid of the stigma and talking about it more and everything else, but I know, like, looking back on high school education and that, like, there was no focus, there was no curriculum, nothing was taught or opened up. Like, you had your Birds and the Bees video back when you were in 6th grade, and that was a one-time deal, and they moved on from that. And it's like, but what can be done to help get the education out there to people younger, so they can recognize things, to where it doesn't keep building up to where somebody like myself, who was, I think I was 30 at the time whenever the Titanic hit the iceberg, and it was like, oh my God, I have a really bad problem, but because I wasn't educated on none of that. What do you think? What can be done as far as that goes, or what you may see, or what you hope can be done in the near future? Say the next 3, 5, 10 years from now.
Absolutely. So in my tenure as a therapist, I was a school-based therapist, and then I was a mobile therapist and a behavior specialist. So a lot of my time included going into schools. And what I've noticed is a lot of educators just want to focus on educating, and they'll leave the mental health to somebody else. And I don't think they often realize that the two go together. When I was a school-based therapist, we would have to encourage the teachers to be a little bit softer and more in tune with their students. But they're like, no, these kids, if a kid comes to school and they're hungry and they're stressed out and they're coming from an unhappy home situation, they're coming to school with that same energy. They don't want to learn. They probably don't have a pencil. They probably don't have their backpack. And you have educators who are like, you're not prepared for school. And it's like, well, do you know why? So when I was a school-based therapist, we would do morning check-ins. And I can remember, a couple of teachers always saying, like, y'all baby them, or they should be ready. Well, they know where they're coming from. They know what's going on at their house. They should be ready. And I'm thinking, like, he's 10. I don't know if I could get up in the morning and come from a hectic household and be hungry and come to work and be like, yes, I'm ready for my first meeting, and be in great spirits. So I really think that mental health techniques should be incorporated into the school day. I think they should have morning check-ins where people talk about how they feel and what they need for the day. There's something called the sanctuary model where you do like a check-in. You express your goal for the day, you talk about how you're feeling, and then you identify one person in your circle or in your setting that can help you achieve that goal for the day. And if it's somebody in that immediate space, then everybody responds with, I got you. And I just think that schools should just incorporate those types of techniques into the schools. I think that therapists should be on the school staff and not contracted in, because then it creates like a welcome visitor type of environment. Like, you can come work with these kids, but don't be in there observing the teachers and don't be telling us how to do our jobs. And that's not helpful. So you kind of isolate the therapist or you're dumping on them. So I think there should be like a more inclusive plan. I would love to see, schools take on, wellness plans and be more mental health focused and including it in there. But it would take like a whole overhaul of that school or that district. Like, everybody would have to buy in. It just takes one person to not believe in mental health and its effect on the individual and, how they work or how they learn to not make the situation successful.
We see how difficult it is for school districts to approve things that are already going on in the school district as it is, let alone adding something new to it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Then when we even just look at what's been going on lately, when there's a shooting or a traumatic event in the community, they send, these crisis counselors out there for 1, maybe 2 sessions, and then that's it. And trauma is not resolved in 1 or 2 sessions. Mm-hmm. It can last you for a lifetime. It can subside for a little while and pop up, as a bad memory, a dream, just whatever out of nowhere. So I think if schools already had regular therapists on staff, you wouldn't need the crisis services. You would already have those plans and those things in place. A crisis is something that you should be planning for. So you should be prepared. So in the ideal world, all students would have, a wellness plan of what to do when something, like a crisis or mental health something unpleasant happens. They would know what to do. They would know that, who my support people are. They would have interventions that they can use. They would have coping skills. They would have groups. They would have those things in place already. But I just feel like it's a piecemeal system.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think social media has played into, I mean, we know that the cyberbullying and everything else, but how much of that aspect with the social media, be it on the phone, having just random people across from wherever being able to say whatever they want to you, do whatever they want, post whatever they want. I mean, I know there's stuff as adults I'll see and I'll go, that's going to mess with me for a couple of days, right? Like we've seen it. Mm-hmm. Big time stuff that's blown up nationwide, and then, just things on a random daily basis. But how much of that has played into, like you said, with the trauma and the rise of people not being able to cope with seeing and dealing with that stuff on a almost minute by minute basis with how much people are on their phones?
I think, we were just talking about our high school reunion, and I remember in high school I had a cell phone, and I don't think it had internet. It was green screen. There was no Facebook.
You got to play Snake.
That was it.
You had Snake and call me after 9 when my minutes are free.
And don't text me because those are not free. We wasn't texting.
Yes.
So I think for me, just to watch the evolution of the cell phone and internet has been something to watch. But in that, our social interactions or kids' social interactions, I don't want to say they've evolved, but they've definitely shifted to go along with the technology and the signs of the times. You can say something to somebody with no immediate consequences. In 2002, if I went to school and said something disrespectful to somebody or started a rumor, we're fighting on the bus, we're fighting at lunch. There's going to be an immediate, consequence for that. Not saying it's okay, but I'm just saying, like, we were more mindful. Now kids can get on there and say things with no immediate consequences, or it's the phenomena of everybody's trying to share it or be the first one to share it. And then they're videotaping everything because everybody wants to be the first person to get all those likes. So I think social media, even for adults, I work with folks who cannot put their cell phone down. And it's like, that increases anxiety. It increases depression because you're looking at constant pictures of other people's mm-hmm. lives, maybe, their family situations or money situations, and then looking at your life. Like, I wish I had what they had, but you're only looking at pictures. So I feel like the internet has kind of like outrun what we can do as far as like bullying and mental health treatment. Like, we have to catch up.
Yeah, it's I know I'm dealing with it now with my daughter, as far as her wanting to be on social media, and she's 12. But I'm like, I, it's a lot worse once you get on it. And I'm not doing it to be a bad parent, and I'm not doing it to so you can't interact with your friends. I'm doing it because I'm trying to shield you from the
Exactly.
stuff that I know is out there. Like, you know what I mean? But it's something that that as a parent, and you're gonna have to they're gonna have to be on. So once they do get on, because it's how they communicate, like you said, it's that they don't sit in a conversation and talk. They'll Snapchat each other while sitting next to each other. Won't say the words, but they'll snap it to each other. Like, that's just how communication is. So it's something that has to be on, and then you gotta think about how you're gonna monitor it, how you're gonna try to shield them as best you can. And it's no different than when we were younger. If our parents were letting us walk down the street to a park or go somewhere on our bikes, trying to say, okay, well, don't ride past this street,
Right,
as a
right.
way to protect us from going too far away from the house. Because there wasn't that, oh, I'll call you on your cell phone, make sure you say where you're supposed to be, right?
Right,
So
right.
it's just all around, from, like you said, from adults to kids. It's just something that I think we don't know how to catch up to it at this point.
And we were the generation that just started bringing computers into the home too. So our parents didn't even know how to monitor that. Like, even whenever that first started.
When we had dial-up internet, you had to be connected to something. You can't just walk around on the internet.
No.
You had to be somewhere. And hopefully you had a little free disc for a couple free minutes.
Those were like those would sound like, you got that 25 minutes of AOL? I give you $10 for it. Like, you had them discs out there. But no. So dealing with what you've dealt with as a therapist, and seeing what you've seen, what would you say to somebody who may think that they have struggles with mental health that they're not aware of? And like, what signs would you say, or what aspects of things would you have them be more mindful of, to say, okay, well, maybe I should go talk to somebody based off of these couple things? And everybody's different, I get that, but just generally speaking.
I think when your daily activities of living, like getting up, brushing your teeth, getting a shower, eating regularly, getting a good night's sleep, interacting with your immediate family, friends, or coworkers, when those things that you should be able to do regularly and that you do every day start to get out of whack, then I think you should definitely at least start with your not a pediatrician, a PCP. When I do therapy sessions, I always ask my clients, like, how you been sleeping? What's your appetite been like? Those are two telltale signs for depression and anxiety. And actually, those are two simple questions without, pointing a finger or making somebody feel away, that just say, like, I'm checking in on you, and this could be the sign of something else. Having a sad mood for more than a day or two. If we're talking about like 2 weeks or something, you should probably go talk to somebody. If you're noticing that you're not getting any sleep and you're losing weight, go talk to somebody. Like, those things are not. But another one is, like I said, if you're not able to maintain your regular hygiene and you're not brushing your teeth, you're not getting your hair cut or combing it, basic things that you do every day. Once your routine's out of whack, you should definitely go talk to somebody. And if you're feeling like you want to harm yourself or harm somebody else, absolutely go talk to somebody.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be the extreme to go and get the help, right? I know when my situation first started, and this is how I knew it was way beyond the point of me having to go. But when my situation first started, I was rushed to the emergency room because they thought I was having a stroke, and my left side of my face was twitching and pulling down. They thought it was Bell's palsy. Like, spent a week in the hospital, the whole brain, like all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after everything came back, and it was like, you're clear, everything's good, you didn't have a stroke, you don't have Bell's palsy, there's nothing wrong from a physical health standpoint. Why don't you go talk to somebody? And it was like, okay, well, it has to be here, because all the physical stuff got rolled out. But I didn't know that until I was rushed to the hospital and didn't even think of those things that you just said, just from a day-to-day basis, were out of whack or not normal from that standpoint. So yeah, it's recognizing it and not being afraid to go and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody is probably the biggest hurdle that people encounter when first trying to tackle that they have something to do with mental health.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because it's almost like people feel like they're admitting that something's wrong with them. But like you said, if you had a headache and it lasts too long, you're going to go see a doctor, no question. If you break your foot, you're going to the emergency room, no question. You know what I mean? So I would love for people to take their mental wellness the same way. Like, not feeling like myself, let me just go talk to somebody. And, at my daytime job, I'm the director of behavioral health. And we have like multi-level ways to address our patients' mental health concerns. We recognized early on that everybody may not need to see a therapist right away. So we start by just sending a letter saying like, hey, your PCP said you had a high depression screening. We're just following up to see if you want to do a wellness plan. So we offer wellness plans with people. We have community health workers that, will call them and say, hey, again, your PCP said you were struggling with some depression. Let's do a depression screen with you and do a wellness plan. And the wellness plan is just things that they can do that they know will make them feel better, but also things outside of their norm that they're not used to doing. Because you got to get out your norm to feel better, right? And to get those things together. And also identifying people that are supports. And then always, including who you can call in a crisis. We always refer to resolve crisis and call 911 when all else fails. And then after that, if people say, I've been working on this wellness plan and somebody's followed up with me, 1 or 2 times on it, and I'm getting better, but I'm still not feeling like I need to feel, I want to talk to a therapist now. Cool. And the beauty of therapy is you can go 2 to 3 times a week. You can go once a month. It's on a spectrum. So you can go as much as you and your therapist feel like you need to go. And then if you feel like you need to have, to see a psychiatrist, we have one of those as well. A lot of folks want to just skip to the psychiatrist and they don't realize there's interventions and things that you can do before you get to the psychiatrist and get to that medication point. But even sometimes when you start recommending medication, people are like, I don't want meds. I'm not going to take those. And what about the side effects? And what about this? And I always go back to, if you had a headache, you would not walk around with a headache for 2-3 years. So why would you walk around with severe depression that long? Potentially, a medication solution to help you with that. So everything's not for everybody, but I feel like there's multiple ways that we can, address this mental health without it just, being straight to therapy. Like there's things you can do as far as self-care. So people all the time, you're not feeling well, go for a walk, go outside and get some air, do some deep breathing, try some yoga. I knew when I started my practice, like I'm going to be stressed out for a little while because this is in addition to my daytime job. Started going to the gym in my apartment complex, walking a little bit. If I come home from work and I had a long day, I'll sit in my car for 5 or 10 minutes and just unplug, cut my phone off, cut the music off, and just sit there and people watch. Sometimes I'll sit out there and, take a couple deep breaths. Sometimes I'll sit out there and do a body scan and close my eyes and just, feel my body just in that moment. But there's so many things that you can do before you get to, a therapist or a psychiatrist that you can do at your house that are free.
Right.
I think the car one might be everybody's therapy.
Where? Listen.
Yes.
It's the little things. It's the little things, rewarding yourself. Have a snack if you haven't had one. Treat yourself to dinner. Buy yourself a new pair of shoes. I'm not saying go out there and get crazy with it, but, treat yourself. There's so many ways to make yourself feel good. And I think people, sometimes feel guilty. And it's like, no, you're allowed. We get one of these lives. Why walk around not feeling good in it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that the big thing is once you figure out where you're at and what works for you, consistency is key. You have to be disciplined and do it on a daily basis. For me, it was when I felt like a panic attack was coming. What worked for me in the beginning, it was I throw in headphones and I listen to just instrumental music just to kind of calm me down and refocus and look around, get my bearings, deep breathing, like those type of things. Write in a journal. I used to carry a little notepad with me, and anytime I felt like a certain way or if a panic attack did come, I would write down where I was at, what time it was, what I was doing, what happened right before, what happened right after. just so I could go back and look at it so that I could be more aware of the situations when they presented themselves in the future, so I could get through it without going through a panic attack, right? But I had to do that daily, consistently, nonstop until it was just second nature, that muscle memory. And then it got to the point where I didn't have to walk around with the notepad. I knew how to recognize it, right? I didn't need to put the earbuds in and listen to the 9-minute Rocky Balboa instrumental to start out the movie. Like, I didn't need those things because I got to the point after doing it every single day and every single time it happened to where I knew how to cope and focus. Does it still get the best of me sometimes? Absolutely. And there are certain days and situations where they're better than others, right? But as long as you don't stop what you start, you can change the methods as what helps you, but you still have to be consistent in doing the methods.
Absolutely. The fact that you were walking around with a notebook is just like, my therapist told us, like, yes.
Don't lie.
Yes.
It really was, like, absolutely. And it was, different things brought on different situations. Absolutely. And that was probably the hardest part in the beginning was, okay, like, why now? Why this? It could have been just randomly driving somewhere, and then next thing I know, I'm pulled over, like, feeling like I can't breathe, and how am I going to drive home? Like, well, why there? But was I thinking about something? You know what I mean? In a grocery store, right? You know what I mean? Just like so many different things, and trying to understand what was going on around me and everything else to get me to that point, so I could either avoid those situations altogether because I know it's going to be an adverse reaction for me, or to say, okay, if I know I'm going to do XYZ, I have to prepare this way before I leave the house, or I know if I get to a certain point, I got to leave because it's going to turn into a bad situation. So, like, all those things, like I said, it wasn't easy and it didn't come right away, but that was the hardest part in the beginning, was just trying to understand, well, why now? Why here? Why, like, what's going on and why is it happening?
Absolutely. Well, first off, yes to the wellness planning, because that's what that is. Having a plan for when you go out. But like I said, mental health is the brain's ability to cope. So while you think you're okay, you really might be in survival mode. And our bodies will let us know, in one way or another, like, I'm not okay. And it might be at times where we're not expecting it, or times where it's not ideal for us to be experiencing it. Sometimes, like I said, depression doesn't always just look like, people just crying and saying after said. It could look like, I know people who have high functioning depression that go to work that, are baseball coaches and, soccer coaches and yoga instructors and all these things. And, they go home, and once the structure is gone in their day, they lose all control. So, kudos to you for sharing and for letting us know, like, how you coped with it. That's so dope. So dope.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm at the point now where I'm comfortable talking about it. So, like, I'll be an open book because I know that my story is different from your story, but what I can say may help you. It may not, but it may help you, or it may get you to take that step to go and see somebody or talk to somebody or bring something up. From that standpoint, you brought up the, like, with a headache or a broken foot and all that. We can't see mental health, right? Do you think that's trying to think of how to phrase the question? You think that's part of the reason why people don't understand it, because they can't see it? Like, I know if I sprain my wrist, I know my wrist is going to swell and it's going to hurt and everything else. I hit my funny bone. It's going to last for like 5 or 10 seconds, but it'll go away, right? But you can't see anything with mental health. Do you think that's, the hardest part from
kind of go along with that?
Yeah. I think we see the symptoms of it, but I think it's hard for people to grasp that mental health is real, like you said, because we can't see it, or sometimes we can't wrap our head around it, or everybody's different. Well, I experienced this and I can do all that, or I've been in car accidents and I'm not anxious. I'm not an anxious driver. I think a lot of times people who don't understand mental health, not going to say it's a choice, but they can't get past what their understanding of normal or healthy is. You have to really be in a humble place to understand, mental health and mental illness. Like you have to understand, like this is a real thing, and it's not that doesn't look the same for everybody, and everybody's not going to have the same reaction. Everybody's not going to, be like, hey, I need help. It's always going to look different, and I think that's part of the stigma and the difficulty with people accepting it and embracing treatment, or being a support person for somebody who's struggling.
All right, I'm done. Y'all can jump in. I'm done. Like I said, I didn't want to be this guy. I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. And I don't know how much they wrote down questions wise. I know Donald, he sent over in the group chat before, like, hey, I'm probably just going to be a sponge and just sitting here listening to all this because I don't really know nothing about it. So I wasn't, I was expecting that. Jay's always quiet. He, unless we're talking about Pop-Tarts or peach rings, he really don't say much.
That's the thing.
We were kind of just talking about treatment.
Brands of peach rings, P's. We need 10 brands. 10.
Talking about treatments, I mean, things change constantly, but where do you see the future of treatments going? Are there like treatments that are starting to be utilized today that you hope, get more traction on them? Or
so I've actually had some conversations just with like some colleagues over like the last couple of days where they had seen some readings about going back to psychedelic mushrooms and using MDMA and things like that for treatment. At one point, you can go to therapy, get a little bit of ecstasy, lay on the couch, and just tell your whole business. So I did hear that there may be some return to those treatment modalities. I did not read those articles.
Oh yeah,
I did not read them, but I do hear whispers here and there, or I do hear little peeps here and there of people using things like psychedelic mushrooms and things like that to cope with like anxiety and suicidal ideations and things like that. I'm not well versed in it, but those are just some things that I have heard. It's maybe not like a progression, but like going back to things that have used, once drugs were criminalized, so many things became, no-nos.
And I mean, even here in Pennsylvania, we're really limited on medical marijuana, like on what
Which
you
is
can
horrible.
get. Yeah. And
it's
I mean,
horrible.
It seems like that is something that they're trying to push to get, a bill passed to where it just becomes legal and have different variations of it instead of just one form of it. Do you see that? I mean, your feelings on that? Do you see that could be going forward better?
I think they should. I have patients who will like whisper, like, I have a tincture at home, or I gave them some weed drops, or I got some edibles. And it's like a whisper. And I mean, naturally, it's with their therapist, but if I'm honest, they have had most of them have had, positive results to it. I think once, the state and federal laws catch up to what, is really needed for people. But I think people should have a choice. If you feel like medical marijuana is going to help you with your depression and anxiety, the government shouldn't be able to tell you that you can or can't have it. And if you feel like your children can benefit from it and their providers feel like, they're going to benefit from it, I think that, it should be an option there as well. Not just for physical issues, but like I said, mental health as well. I think there's so much stigma and attached to it, especially with the criminalization of it. I think people just think like all drugs are bad and say no. And it's like, well, some of these psychotropic medications also can be, pretty heavy, have really bad side effects, have addictive capabilities. So it really just depends on what side of the pen you're on. But I'm here for the medical weed. And like I said, most of my patients who do it, they sneak and do it. Or, they don't feel like it's something that they can talk about openly, and they should be able to talk about what's helping them openly without feeling like somebody's judging them or looking down on them or looking at them like they're lazy and a pothead. There's somebody who's trying to remedy what they're experiencing and found something that worked for them, and they shouldn't be judged for that.
I mean, they got to put the work in, and if that's what helps them do it.
Right. And most of the folks I work with have done their research and, they're more versed in it than I am, which is impressive. But once you show me you've done the research, like who is me to tell you that that's not a good thing for you? Like I'm going to encourage you to do what's best for you because you better than I do.
No, absolutely. I have used medical marijuana in the past, and when they first, it's crazy now. Like you can look at it's like going to dinner and you look at a menu, right? And there's so many different things in it break, but it it'll literally break down like, okay, this is for, anxiety, and this is what it'll do and how it will help and everything else. And it's really gotten to a point where you can go in, know what your exact symptoms are, and you can literally find a strain or whatever that will help you, and then you can adjust accordingly or try different things and everything else. But yeah, that has been something that I've seen over the past couple of years that's really I don't want to say impressive, but to the point now where it's so finite and so specific that okay, I can go get this, watermelon splash, and it's going to help me. Not, you know what I mean? But that's literally that's how it is. You know what I mean? Which is crazy. So yeah, I mean, I have done it. It's not something that I do all the time for the anxiety, but it was used at a point in the past just to help as another thing to help process and cope and everything else to deal with it. So yeah, it's out there.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm a fan of it. The folks that I work with and who use it, have always, most of them have reported, good results. But that's the medical marijuana. We're not talking about the street drugs, we're talking about the medical. But like you said, they know which strand they need. They know how to use it. And like I said, a lot of folks use those tinctures, those drops. A lot of people use that. Just 1 or 2 drops gets them through whatever they need. And they say it lasts a couple of days. So if that's better than taking, 4 or 5 psych meds, again, who is me to tell you not to do that?
Right.
Especially knowing, like I said, that some drugs can have an addictive factor or, some pretty adverse side effects.
Right. We've seen you talked about what your practice is going to be doing in the consulting and providing avenues and ways for people to help get their licenses and stuff. When it comes to community and getting the word out there, we see food drives, turkey drives, clothing drives, donations, Toys for Tots, all that stuff. But I've yet to see something to help talk about mental health or put it out there in a community setting to make it accessible to people in the community. And I know it's an individual thing, and it's not, hey, come sit in my chair, wait in line, and we'll have a 25-minute therapy session. I know that, but do you think that there's some way that we can make it into a community event where we can bring awareness to people in our communities to make them more aware of what's available, accessible, and how would you go about doing that?
So what I do is I try to do conversations like this. If somebody wants me to come talk to a group or hop on a podcast or join a discussion, I'm absolutely here for that. While I do want to promote my business, I also want to promote, positive mental health. And that there are people out here who aren't, that are younger, that are not just, old and wearing cardigans and Crocs and things like that to work. Like there are young therapists out here, that you can relate to. I think therapy, it's a hustle as well. When you want to promote your business, there's these different, magazines and referral websites. The fees are ridiculous. But I would prefer to do, like I said, community events, try to get out there. I think for me in the future, maybe not this summer, but probably towards the fall, just try to do, those pop-up wellness events and just offer free things. Again, a lot of folks are out here to make money, but it doesn't cost me anything to have a conversation with somebody. It doesn't cost me anything to have these type of conversations. Like it's nothing. These are the types of things that people need. So that's what I would say to do. I think more of these types of platforms and conversations are definitely needed to just, minimize the stigma, to raise the awareness, to help, promote the different businesses and practices that are out there that are really for the people in the community and not just, warehouses where, you'll go from therapist to therapist to therapist and you always have a tab or a balance or, something like that. It has to also be affordable.
Yeah, that affordability that brings up like the socioeconomical aspect of it, where communities that we grew up in, you look at it, they're not the wealthiest communities.
They're not.
Right?
They're
and
not.
It's still, I don't have $400 an hour to go pay a therapist, right? But you know, there's other ways and other things, you know what I mean? But I feel like trying to get it out there as much as possible, like you said, doing pop-up events or anything, even just to hand out literature and say, hey, these are websites that you can go to if you want to take a anxiety test, or this is what you can look at and see. If you see these things, maybe go talk to your PCP. Like, just try to get it out there in front of as many people as possible, especially in the areas where we grew up at, because we all know where we grew up at, and we all know people from that area that they're not the most prone to go and talk to somebody, right? So trying to get it out there and make it more of a normalized thing is the best way to go about it.
Absolutely. And just because of where we grew up at and what my experience has been just becoming a therapist, just I offer a very, very discounted fee for folks who don't have health insurance, or if I don't accept their health insurance. When I tell people my rate, other therapists are like, what? You charge what? You ain't gonna make no money doing that. But those individuals that get the discounted rate are the ones who show up for every appointment. Those are the folks who call before and be like, hey, I'm gonna be 10 minutes late. Can we still meet? I find that they appreciate the discount or just appreciate having the access to something that they typically wouldn't have access to. So while we all get up every day to go to work to make money, I feel like this is something where it's my business and I can run it how I want to. And I decided that I don't want to take advantage of people in my community with these high, luxury prices. I don't want to do that.
Good for
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely.
And don't forget, for some communities, check out your free clinics too. See what services they offer.
Yes. Braddock has the health center on Braddock Avenue. I supervise those therapists. We have a sliding fee, but we're also federally qualified. So if you're unable to afford our services, you're not going to be turned away. If you can't afford your copay, we'll try to get you on a sliding fee. If you can only pay your bill this month, maybe not next month, but the month after, we're never going to be like, you owe us money. You can't come back here. And that's what most practices do. They don't allow patients to carry a balance, or if you have a balance, you can't schedule your next appointment. But the beauty of a lot of these free clinics is, that flexibility with payment. But on the flip side, there's a shortage of therapists because they don't have the ability to pay therapists a living wage. So now you have to find people who are really doing this out of love. And right.
Yeah, that balance that's trying to be found. And I mean, you look at all professions nowadays, there's a balance of trying to find workers versus living wage and everything else. And that's a whole nother podcast. You know what I mean? That's a whole nother podcast in and of itself, right? But
Absolutely.
trying to find that balance, but yeah, it's something, like I said, the whole point of having you on and doing this during this month was to get the word out there. And I saw the Zoom call you did with your colleagues last week, and seeing you making moves, and I was like, you know what, let me reach out to her and see if she'll come on.
I could not tell y'all no. I
figured, I was like, well, maybe she'll say no, you know what I mean? But I was like, nah, Khavah will do it. She'll do it. But yeah, I mean, look, we on our podcast on a weekly basis, we keep things light, funny, try to just talk about whatever comes to us, because we look at it as an escape for people that listen or tuning in during their work week or their drive back and forth, just to kind of get away from their normal stuff. You know what I mean? But situations like this, like I said, we can dip our toes in a serious pool and come out and ask the hard hitting questions and get good conversation going. So
absolutely.
No, I appreciate all that. As we wind down here, go around the horn. Any other additional questions for Miss Khavah Murray?
I know talking is like the big part of therapy, but do you ever read into body language whenever you see your patients as a thing?
Absolutely. Right now, most of my services are virtual because of the pandemic. I just never transitioned back to doing anything in person. But when I was working in person, I mostly worked with kids, and I did a lot of play therapy. You'd be surprised what you can get done over a game of Uno or a game of chess, tricking them into thinking that we're just playing the game, but tell me about your day. And next thing you know, you're problem solving, but you're still kicking their butt in Uno. The same with adults.
Hold on. Uno, is it your house rules or is it actual Uno rules? Because everybody's house rules with Uno is different.
Listen, the kids got different rules these days. I'm like, I don't know about the stacking and all this other stuff. I'm like, this is how we played in 1999, okay? Like, this is what I know how to play. But sometimes I'll let them, mix it up a little bit. But even with adults, if I feel like they aren't comfortable, I'm totally okay with, like, some gentle confrontation. Like, hey, I know that you don't feel comfortable. Like, what's up with that? Or can we talk about it? Or is there something I'm doing? And we just talk about it. And for the most part, people will tell you, I don't feel comfortable, or I never thought I would have to see a shrink. And I tell them, I'm not a shrink. I'm a therapist. So you don't have to worry about that. But I also use humor, and I'm a realist. I don't use real big technical jargon. I talk to people in words that they can use and try to be as relatable as possible. And I always tell people, if you feel like I'm not helping you, please let me know. I can get you to somebody who can, because I know I'm not a fit for everybody who's, comes to me for a therapist. Most part I am, but sometimes I'm just not. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Jay, silent assassin, you've been quiet all episode. I know you're soaking.
I'm just processing, man. I'm just like, hey.
I know. This is deep.
So for people who think we got our shit together, which I don't, or they need like daily tips.
that guy right there.
Or any daily tips you can go through to just like, or daily routines just to change the outlook of your day or change your mindset for the moment.
I got that question a lot during the pandemic. Like, what can I do to feel better? And I always tell people, start your day with gratitude. Think about something that you're grateful for. Have a schedule so you know what to expect during your day. Do something that's going to make you smile or that's going to be fun for you. If that's running outside in the rain or, playing Call of Duty, do something that's going to make you feel good. Keep in touch with your family and your friends. I call my mom as soon as I wake up. I don't care if she's woke or not. I'm woke and you need to be woke too. And if I'm not calling her, then I'm calling my nephew. Like, somebody's up and somebody's going to talk to me because now I'm ready to talk. But just, having those types of connections and those type of habits, like, they're used to me at this point and I'm used to them. But just having those things of consistency that you can do that are going to make you feel good, and have a self-care routine. If it's sitting in the car for 5 minutes before you go to work or after you go to work, do that. If it's sitting in the dark listening to, Sade or No Limit Soldiers, whatever your preference is, do that. But just come up with a list of things that you can do. I think a lot of times when people think about self-care, it's just elaborate, like spa day and all these eye patches, and it's not that. It's whatever you can do within your means to feel good. Even with working out and stuff. I tell people, don't go in there trying to do no extreme workout. Go in there and commit to 15 minutes if you can. Real commit to 5. You'll feel good after you do the 5. Start small, and don't overwhelm yourself. But there's so many small things that you can do that, like I said, will help you feel good. But mostly, start the day with gratitude. Try to do one type of physical activity, stay connected to your family and friends, and try to keep a regular routine.
Because for me, there's like 2 different Jasons. For me, there's work Jason, go in, fuck everybody. When I come home, I turn it off, and it's just like sunshine and rainbows here. Like, I don't know. I figure like
sunshine and rainbows. That's the most light you had in your room.
It is the most light. So I'm trying to make that transition back to work, because I think work has turned me into a different person.
And work will do that.
Yeah.
It's the people there, it's the environment, it's the managers, supervisors, whatever. Like, it can be a whole bunch of stuff, especially when your coworkers is going through something. It can affect you too. I tell people all the time, if you can take off work a day, take off, call off. I'm getting my little schedule together now. My daytime job doesn't even know. Like, I'm about to take 2 days off a week for the rest of the summer. I need a little me time, and I'm not going to do anything for my practice during that time. It's going to be strictly like me time. I'm going to, be intentional about spending time with my niece and nephew, going on walks with my mom. She keeps asking me to go walk, and I'm like, I'm in bed. It's like, get up and go walk around this park with your mom. So I'm going to take this time off so I have the free time to do it and just do no work. And, forget who doesn't like it. It's not PT. I'm going to use it, and if y'all don't like it, y'all know what y'all can do. Which I know they're not going to do, but but I think jobs are getting more in tune with the whole wellness, mental wellness thing as well. I asked my job, if you're not going to give me more PTO, I need mental health time you're going to give me a promotion. Thank you for the money, but I also need these extra days to be able to stay home and gather myself or take care of myself. And they agreed. So you just got to ask for that stuff too. But please, if you don't like the job, take you a couple of days off. The target will be there. It will be there when you go back.
Like I see with work, they don't implement the stuff. They'll give you access to it. They won't implement it in there. Like you said, like in schools, like daily things that'll help. Nah, it's just like, work.
They don't appreciate
We'll give you access to all this wellness. Work.
On your time.
Not the, I don't want to say it's the false promise, but, those are the things, and it's been seen over the course of the pandemic, but, the action will follow up and show whether or not your company, your whatever, is truly going to do the work to make those things accessible for your employees. Or you just have some employees that, all right, I'm out, I'm leaving. I'll roll the dice and I'll take my chances and go somewhere else, and call it a day and make it work somehow, some way, some other way, because I've known and I've dealt with it on, like, the job, you're not going to affect my mental health to the point where it's affecting my home life. And once it starts affecting the home life, then you know it's time for a change. No matter what your job is, what your pay is, everything else. When you come home from work and it's affecting the home life, that job's not for you, because it's not a positive aspect in your life. So you gotta know when to read and see those signs as well.
Absolutely. And jobs are going to come and go. I keep seeing all these, for hire, and we're short staffed. And I just feel like, at first I was like, well, why don't people want to work? Like, what's going on? And I just, not only what I've come to as a therapist is people are just, they're tired. They're tired of not, feeling appreciated. They're tired of feeling like they got to be beat down about making $1. It's like, this money comes and goes. Like I said, we get one life to live. Like, I'm going to be happy at 9. And if it means not having this check, I'm not going to have this check. I tell my job and my staff too, like, do not let this job compromise your mental wellness. Like, do not.
And that's a scary thing to look at it, because that the check, right? Like, hey, rent's due every month, electric, like, those things are going to be there. So that confronting that can bring on a whole nother set of mental health issues, right? Trying to confront that to make the choice, like, do I leave what I know for the unknown? But what I know is not letting me live the best lifestyle possible from a health standpoint, physically and mentally. So that right there, I know a lot of people have been confronted with that, and the hard choice got to be made. But like you said, with your practice, you got to take that leap of faith, and you got to go out there and do it.
You got to. And even before this, I've been working full time, I think, since I got my license. But before that, y'all, I would not work full time. I give y'all 25 hours, maybe 30. And I knew I wouldn't have any health insurance. I knew I didn't have any dental. I'm not going to get any places and contacts, and I would have to pay for it. When I tell y'all those were the most fun and career-free times of my life, like, people often, do you work? What do you do? Yeah, I'm going to this home visit, but first we're going to go eat, and then I'm going to do this home visit. But just having that flexibility and freedom, like, I needed it. Like I said, I worked part-time, so, I did take a financial hit, but I had a ball. I felt good about myself. I felt good about my life. Me and my niece got to hang out. Like, I just had a good time. And when I look back, it's like, I definitely want to get back to that point eventually, like in the next year or two, where I don't work full-time and I do have that free time to do what I want to, like sleep or, binge watch TV shows and, do all those things, lay in the grass at the park, But right now I'm doing this, but work is not the end all be all. You will die and they will replace you tomorrow. The company I work for, it's one of those companies where people work for like 40 and 50 years. And, every other month or so we're celebrating their retirement. And they said there that, they are happy to see folks go and retire. But when somebody retires, it's like a month, 2 months, 5 months later, we're sending them condolences cards. I'm thinking, like, you done worked 50 years of your life in here with these people. Finally get time to go home and be with your family. Now you did. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And sometimes we send a, flower baskets. Sometimes, somebody might forget to send the arrangement. It's just like, dang, y'all. I forgot to send a flower arrangement and a fruit basket. Like, that man worked here 50-some years. Or that lady gave y'all this, or this person did that, So just making sure like you live for you. These jobs is gonna come and go.
And you just said it the best. They gave so much of their time and energy. They gave their life for that job.
Literally, and we replacing them now. We interviewing on a regular. They're filter positions, and it's just like work is work, and it's like why you feel a connection there, and you like to check. When you die, they're going to keep it moving. They might be sad for a couple of days or two, like, oh, all was cool. She was funny. She made us feel good. So, what do you think of the qualifications we should look for to replace her?
Right. Yeah.
Before the pandemic, I was a 9 to 5. You know, I didn't have a computer at home for work or anything. And when the pandemic started, you know, I'm still at home. And some other friends that I know that work from home, they say the same thing, that it's not a 9 to 5 anymore. They're working so much more in the morning or in the evening. And so far, 2022 has just been crazy busy for me with work. And I took a break a couple weeks ago, and it was so nice to take that break because I didn't bring my laptop with me. I didn't bring an iPad or anything with me. I had my phone, but I limited myself on that. I didn't do the show that weekend. I told them, I was like, whenever I took a break, I took a break for that. And there was even a point whenever I was on the vacation and some people, like my family, wanted to go do stuff. I stayed at the house by myself. It was the most relaxing time I had, just me time.
Absolutely, you got to take those breaks.
Yeah.
I feel like with everything being virtual, I'll get up and it's like, I'm up at 7. I'll just get on my laptop, start work. But I feel like 2 years ago when you had to drive, 10, 15, 20 minutes to a meeting, you were more mindful of how you scheduled your meetings. Now it's like you'll have a meeting at 10, 11, 12, and everybody's like, well, do you have 5 minutes afterwards to talk? And it's like, well, dang, I just sat here for 3 hours straight looking at this screen. I'm tired. But I think like the work expectation has changed with the virtual. I think they expect you to work more because you're not moving around as much. You don't have to travel. All you have to do is open up your laptop. And it's like, no, I got a limit now. I'm not doing more than 3 meetings in a day. They can't be more than an hour. And if you need to follow up after the meeting, please put it in the email and I'll get to it when I got time. Like, you got to create those boundaries. And I think sometimes people look at it like, oh, she doesn't care about her job. I do, but I care about me more.
Right.
So, like I said, if I die tomorrow, they're going to post my job on Tuesday.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up and put a nice little bow on this. I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us and getting this word out here. We didn't come in with a game plan. We were just gonna let it flow and have a conversation about it and see where it went. And I think we had a pretty good conversation.
Me too.
Good stuff got brought up. Good talks. Before we get out of here, let everybody know again about the business, how they can find you locally. Any social media stuff you want to plug, anything from that aspect for yourself or for the company, and just let people know where they can find you and how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Hope Deals Counseling and Consulting. My website is www.hopedeals.net. On Facebook, I am Hope Deals Counseling and Consulting. On Instagram, I'm Hope Deals PGH. And my telephone number is 412-228-0679. So if you are looking for some consultation or some therapy, please give me a call.
Yeah, and after we go off air, maybe we'll work in Dunmark's reference. You'll get 5% off your first consultation.
So my consultations are free. I do give free 15-minute consultations. I do the free ones. So if you want to do a little something off the first session, I'm saying, work that out.
We'll talk offline about that. We'll work it out. Thank you very much for coming on. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
For you guys watching, for you guys that tuned in tonight. Give us feedback. Let us know if you enjoyed the show. Once it posts, please share it with as many people as you can. It may not help you, but it might help somebody else. So that's all we can do. Try to help as many people as we can, given the times that we are in. So again, thanks, Khavah. Thanks to the other 3 Dunmarks. As usual, catch us Saturday 11 a.m. for our normal live show. We'll be on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We now have a Twitch stream. So tune in and check us out there. As always, head on over to prowrestlingtees.com/DunmarksPod. Pick up some merch. We'll give you a live shout out on air. email the show, your questions, dumbmarkspod@gmail.com. Chris, did I miss anything with the wrap up?
I think you're good, man. Visit dumbmarkspod.com for everything and more.
Wood chips and wood
Thank y'all
chips.
so much.
All right. Well, again, thanks, Khavah. Thanks for tuning in. Like and share the video. Get this message out here. Let people know. We're trying to make some changes and help as many people as we can. So, as always, I'm a Mark. You're a Mark. Tell a Mark. And until next time, y'all can catch us around the way.